everything in the film is too exaggerated. After all, there are people who do not lose hope in any situation, and they will be able to unite and defeat the disease. The girl looks at her companion with a satisfied smile. She admits, a little embarrassed, that she is impressed by his cool speech. Later in the night, as Lucas and Ellie sleep in his apartment, the man hears Ellie breathing heavily. Turning the girl over on her back, he wakes her up and watches with horror that blood is flowing from her mouth. Then he grabs Ellie, throws her on his back, and hurries outside to catch a car to the hospital. However, as soon as they step outside the apartment complex, Lucas's eyes widen in horror. The streets are mired in devastation, bodies everywhere, burning cars and the sound of sirens. Lucas doesn't understand how the world has changed so much in just a few hours. The dead under their feet are what especially frightens a man. He tries to bring his human burden to his senses. Suddenly, barely breathing, Ellie gives a voice and whispers something. When Lucas listens, Ellie starts screaming that it was all his fault and transforms into a zombie. In a cold sweat, Lucas opens his eyes and is relieved to realize that he was just having a nightmare. He sits up on the bed and looks anxiously at Ellie, who is sleeping next to him. Fortunately, she looks completely healthy. She dreams peacefully. Jumping out of bed, Lucas goes to his desk and pulls out a business card he received recently. He recalls how the director of a pharmaceutical company said that he himself had invested money in it before. The bio company he told Lucas about is conducting research to analyze flu strains and create more effective vaccines using artificial intelligence. Feeling the need to do a good deed after a disturbing dream, Lucas calls the number on his business card. A few hours later, he takes Ellie to the airport, who says goodbye with a slight sadness. Lucas gently hugs the girl and promises to contact her when he is in the States. He is sad to see off Ellie, who caused such a hurricane of feelings in him. But suddenly, he feels his phone vibrating in his trouser pocket. He picks up the phone and is surprised to find his friend Charlie on the other end of the line. Charlie laughs at the fact that Lucas was so scared of a nightmare that he immediately decided to invest in medicine. Lucas is embarrassed by this reaction, so he replies that he has only scheduled a meeting on the issue of such investments. Charlie believes that it will not be easy to succeed in developing a vaccine using artificial intelligence. Lucas listens carefully to his friend's words that the development of artificial intelligence can increase the success of the project. However, even if a drug is created, it will be able to enter the market full of competitors only in 8 to 15 years. Therefore, the profitability is too low compared to the required investment. Lucas reflects on the fact that it may not really make sense to invest in an area that has no potential. However, the dream and the threat that was in it alarmed the man too much. Charlie believes that Lucas is better off listening to the opinion of experts. He decides to introduce his friend to someone who is directly related to medical research. To Lucas's surprise, the expert, with whom he speaks via video call, answers a call from the gym during exercise. Paul is a professor of infectious diseases at the American University Hospital. Lucas is a little embarrassed by such an interesting person, but he is also happy to meet him. Paul decides to find out why Lucas needed his advice. The Korean replies that he is interested in the development of vaccines using artificial intelligence. Paul notes that this is a very interesting and relevant question for scientists. In fact, artificial intelligence is already being used in medicine in drug development and genetic analysis. Performance is still insufficient, but large companies are interested in the early success of this technology. Lucas is surprised that artificial intelligence is already being used, and there are strong competitors in the market. The situation turns out to be more complicated than Lucas imagined. Paul, after listening to Lucas's story, suddenly remembers a friend. He also believes that it is necessary to use artificial intelligence to develop vaccines. And he is also Korean, and by combining these two thoughts, Lucas forms a conclusion. He asks if it's the doctor he's already contacted, Paul says. And it turns out that Paul told him about the research company where this doctor works. Lucas is surprised by this coincidence because he learns that Paul and a doctor named Henry were friends when they studied together. And Paul considers Henry a real genius who can change the world. For such a genius, it would have been more profitable to get support and conduct research in the States. But he went back to Korea. It turns out that in the past, he hit a professor who spoke disparagingly about the purpose of Henry's research. After that, he left the university, saying that it would be better to conduct research alone. Lucas is frightened because he immediately imagines that he will have a hard time. As soon as Henry finds out that he has changed his mind about investing, he will immediately hit Lucas himself. Paul is eager to join Lucas and Henry's meeting, so he immediately volunteers to come to Seoul. And the very next day, they meet at the research center where Dr. Henry works. The American is taller than Lucas and wider in the shoulders, but he is a rather pleasant person. But the CEO of the bio company in which Lucas wants to invest looks very weak and tormented. Paul and Henry happily greet each other after a long separation. Lucas breathes a sigh of relief because Henry does not look threatening. But just as Lucas decides to discuss the investment with him, the doctor begins to cough up blood. As a result, her spray covers the men standing in front of him. Paul sympathetically holds his coughing friend, stroking his back. Lucas looks at the painting with an awkward smile and still thinks maybe he should invest in something else. After getting drunk on energy drinks and coming to his senses, Henry introduces himself to Lucas once again and apologizes for the inconvenience. Paul laughs at him, saying that the reason for his troubles is the lack of training. Lucas decides to find out if everything is okay with the doctor's health. It turns out that he just did not sleep for 5 days to prepare for the meeting. Lucas offers to reschedule the appointment for another day so that the doctor can rest, but the doctor abruptly grips the jar in his hand. The spray covers Lucas' face, and Lucas tries to keep a polite smile on his lips. Henry immediately turns gloomy and says that there should be no postponements. Even at this point, valuable time is running out, as it is impossible to predict where and when the virus will break out. He screams that it will be too late and coughs once again, spraying everyone with his blood. Lucas could get used to it by now. He and Paul don't even raise an eyebrow. Henry grabs the remote control to show the guests a presentation about the importance of his project. He wipes the blood from his face and tries to gather all his strength. The flu, according to the doctor, looks like the same virus as a cold, but there are still significant differences between them. The common cold is caused by several viruses and has mild symptoms, while the flu is caused by a single flu virus and kills up to 1 million people each year. Lucas is stunned by such statistics. He did not think that the consequences of the flu could be so serious. Influenza is constantly mutating. There have already been strains of bird, swine, Spanish flu in history. The latter at one time claimed the lives of 40 million people. And since now the density of the population of cities is much higher, the danger is greater. Now an outbreak of such a flu could turn into an unprecedented pandemic. Dr. Henry is doing his best to prevent such a development of events. Modern flu vaccines will be useless. If the flu mutates, something new will need to be created. Therefore, Henry's company's research is aimed at reducing the speed of the new strain and creating a vaccine using artificial intelligence. The doctor gives Lucas and Paul papers with the results of his research. Professor Paul reads the documents especially actively, but never for a second does he stop exercising. The man is delighted that Henry continued to work on his project even after leaving the States. Henry says that in Korea he does not have the largest financial support, but it is enough to continue research. The floor is so excited with delight that its clothes are torn apart with enthusiasm. Lucas seems tired of wondering about anything to do with these two men. Paul exclaims that Henry did great research despite the lack of support and would love to invest in it. He rushes to his university friend and hugs him with all his might, causing Henry to wheeze. Lucas immediately takes the professor's words personally. He wants to know if this project has a great chance of success. In response, the professor laughs loudly and shakes his head negatively. Such a reaction is shocking, both Lucas and Dr. Henry. Paul then clarifies that this research seems like a worthwhile project for him as a scientist, but it is difficult to talk about third-party investors and their possible profits. Still, it is impossible to predict how long it will take to develop, and it is also important to remember that the value of the research will depend on the new mutated virus. Of course, it will be possible to earn a lot of money later, but so far, 2 risky investments of a huge amount of money and time are required. Thus, Lucas is faced with a very difficult choice. If you just look at the potential profit, then it would be wiser for him not to invest. But Lucas wants to help the development of medicine. Seeing that the potential investor is immersed in thought, Henry decides to come up with a risky idea. If he does not achieve any significant results within 5 years, he will hand over all the results of his research to Lucas and resign. Both Paul and Lucas are shocked that Henry is willing to do this. However, the doctor thus shows his determination. Also, if his company doesn't succeed in 5 years, then all the research will lose its value. He is so determined that he is ready to burn everything he has in an attempt to achieve his goal. Lucas is interested in the investments the company needs, and it turns out that it needs about 2 billion annually, but the more the better. Lucas, after listening to him, declares that since the doctor is so serious, he is ready to provide him with reliable support. He calls his price at 10 billion won a year. That is, in total, he is ready to provide an investment of 50 billion won. Lucas is still not sure if he is doing the right thing, but Henry's passion for his work is worth it. So he comes closer to the doctor and holds out his hand for a handshake, wishing him further success. Relieved, Henry bleeds out of his mouth again and promises to do his best. And then he faints and once again covered in blood. Lucas only sighs. But he is very interested to know what will happen over the next 5 years and what will happen to his investment. Meanwhile, at the company building where Lucas works, Sue is in a hurry to start the working day. She walks into her office and greets her colleagues in a friendly way. One of the coworkers greets back and Sue asks him if Lucas has arrived. Looking around, the guy is confused that he was here only recently. Assuming that Lucas might have gone to the roof, Sue decides to go after him. She is very glad that she will be able to see her older colleague and therefore hurries up the stairs to the roof. She notices through the half-open door that Lucas is talking to his manager. But as she grabs the doorknob to come over, Sue hears snatches of conversation. She does not want to believe in what she has heard and freezes, afraid to breathe. Lucas hands the manager another application, and this time it is definitely for dismissal. The girl freezes in the corridor. She simultaneously wants to intervene and is afraid to approach. Like all people, Lucas dreamed of being an unemployed person with a huge amount of money. People have completely different dreams, but he considers this one to be the most sincere. He will no longer have to go through hell in transport. He will no longer have to suffer because of overtime. You don't have to please an unpleasant boss, because that's the way it is. Lucas now has complete economic freedom, and even if he doesn't work, the money works for him. Lucas is finally ready to become unemployed with a huge amount of money. On Lucas's last day on the job, his manager says that he has always been a diligent worker. He hopes that the man will be able to succeed outside the company. Lucas sincerely thanks his colleagues for the time spent in the company, which gave him a lot. When asked about his future plans, he decides to tell us that he is thinking of just continuing the path of investing. The manager shakes Lucas's hand and tells him to invite him for a drink if he is around. He also whispers to congratulate Lucas on becoming a controlling stake in a pharmaceutical company. Although Lucas did not hide it much, he was nevertheless surprised that the manager knew about it. A young colleague sees off his friend in tears because he is very sad to say goodbye. He pounces on Lucas with a hug, and he is uncomfortable with such a display of emotions. However, he immediately whispers to Lucas to give him a hint next time about what to invest in. The guy wants to follow Lucas's path, make a fortune, and quit. A manager who hears this immediately begins to tease the employee. He notes that there is nothing wrong with wanting to get rich. Therefore, if he wants, he can immediately write a letter of resignation, and the manager will sign it. In tears, the guy takes back his words and whines that he will work harder. The manager asks Lucas if he's going to go into other departments as well, and Lucas has a great plan for that. He has someone to say goodbye to, so he goes up to the department where Maria works. The woman immediately begins to mock the fact that her ex-husband decided to resign. She wishes a man a happy, modest life because a poor man once remains poor inside forever. Lucas is surprised by this statement and asks Maria to clarify her words. She replies that even though Lucas managed to get rich thanks to cryptocurrency, his essence as a beggar will not change. Once she had already noticed this and was disappointed in him, so Maria wonders when this trait will be noticed by others. She is furious that Lucas does not react to the jokes. He smiles absolutely calmly and does not look crushed at all. This makes Maria frown even more. She wants to see Lucas only as a pathetic insect. But the man declares that he really got rich thanks to luck, bought an apartment, a car, and is very happy. And all this luck came to him only thanks to the fact that they divorced in time. A woman in a rage cannot believe that her once downtrodden husband spoke out in such a way. But Lucas calmly turns his back on her and leaves, adding that he marked her numbers as spam so that she could never contact him again. He does not pay attention to the screams and curses of his ex, but the fact that he did not say goodbye to Sue Lucas is upsetting. Lucas is not blind and has long guessed about the girl's feelings. He is grateful to her for finding something in him, even when he was a poor man with low self-esteem. But now that he has Ellie, Lucas can't accept Sue's feelings, so he wanted to say goodbye to her carefully. But maybe it will be better